and welcome to video number 2 in our new Back to Basics series here on YouTube. This video is for you if you've ever run into any of the following problems. Maybe you notice that whether you're singing for a very short period of time or an extended period of time that you come away feeling very sore or vocally hoarse. Or maybe you notice that you have a breathy quality to your voice and you're not sure how to strengthen that tone. Or maybe you notice that you run out of breath very quickly when you're singing and you're wanting to get a little bit more of that vocal stamina and power for projection. If any of those things sound like questions that you've had about your own voice, then definitely keep watching, because today we are diving a little bit deeper into the topics of projection, breath management, and vocal onset for singing. So without further ado, let's go. So the very first topic that I want to look at today is onset. And onset is just a really fancy way for saying how we approach a note vocally. It's how our voices are perceived sound-wise. And there really are 3 main onsets. The very first one that we're going to look at is called breathy or aspirate onset. And this is an imbalance between the tone and the breath itself. So there's not an equal mix of the two. This is very breath forward. If you notice, let's just sing on ha, ha. You'll actually notice that the air comes out first and then the tone comes underneath that. So to sing would be ha, and you'll notice it's a light quality to the voice. There's not much projection there. There's a lot of air that comes out first. So you can hear this today in some pop singers. Some choose to use it for effect, and when done consciously in that way, it can create a neat effect. The issue comes whenever singers use that onset all the time and they don't know how to power through to that next level. Some hindrances that you can see with breathy onset would be, as we mentioned, projection. You don't have the strength of tone that it takes to really power that note through and let it resonate. Another thing would be vocal dryness. So as you can imagine, with that amount of air that's passing over your vocal cords, it's drying them out very quickly. If you notice that you're constantly needing to swallow, or if you feel very sore in your voice whenever you're singing, it could be as a result of that drying effect of the breathy onset. Also, if you notice difficulty with pitch management or accuracy of notes, a lot of times it's because you are too breath forward. There's not enough strength in that tone to be able to control the notes that we're singing. So that is breathy or aspirate onset. The second one is called harsh or glottal. So this is the complete opposite of a breathy tone. This is where the imbalance occurs with the tone coming first and then the air after. So you'll notice this on words like a or ah. So you'll notice first that the vocal cords are completely closed and then the air kind of pops through whenever you say those words. So ah, or notice that the tone is first and that there's a little bit less air. So this glottal effect is also used as a stylistic technique. And again, you'll notice that if you are speaking in certain foreign languages, mainly German is the one that pops to mind for me. It's very glottal. It's very tone heavy first and then the breath kind of riding underneath that. So glottal, when used incorrectly or when used all the time, can actually be very damaging to the voice because it requires a lot of compression on the vocal cords. Again, as that air is kind of like popping through the vocal cords, it's very harsh for your voice. If you notice that you have a very bright or brassy sound whenever you're singing, it could be because it's too tone forward and you need to pull back on that a little bit. The third onset is a balanced onset. So this is where we want to be pretty much all of the time. This is that even mix between tone and breath. So this is where the vocal cords are closer together, they're resonating, but there's still a little bit of space to be able to let that air out, so it's not just forcing its way out as it would in that glottal onset. So again, we can use the same example of singing ha. So with a breathy onset, it would be ha. And you run out of breath very quickly doing that because it's not, there's no breath management there. All the air is rushing out. And then on ha with a glottal, it would be ah, very harsh. And then with that balanced onset, it's ha. You'll notice just a little bit of air and then strong tone that's powering through exactly at the same time, which is where we want to be because it's one, less tension on your vocal cords. You can project through that and it's really good for your vocal health. So balanced onset is where we want to be. We can use the other onsets for different stylistic techniques, for different emotive techniques, but it's not where we want to live as singers. So there is a really good exercise that you can use to train yourself to sing in that balanced onset, especially if you've noticed yourself on either one of those extremes, whether it's breathy or glottal. It's really hard to tell singers just to sing in a balanced onset if they've never experienced or felt that. So practice all three onsets, and I prefer to use he. The breathy onset would be he, or he. So you're really consciously pushing that air out. Then practice the glottal, which would be e. So there literally is no air coming out first. E. That's where you can actually feel your vocal cords touching together. The next, which is where we want to be, the balanced onset, is he. So you hear a little bit of that air at the onset or at the beginning, but then it immediately goes into a stronger tone. So it sounds he. Do that a couple of times until you get the feeling of all three in your vocal cords. So another topic that we are looking at today is breath management and projection. Projection is a lot more than just singing loudly. And I do want to make sure today that we are projecting from the right place and that it's not coming from a point of strain or tension. A lot of times what I see in singers is that when they are projecting, it's a lot of force created right here in the voice. We tend to think that there's something that we need to do to manufacture the strength in our voice. And there, in reality, is nothing that we can do. We can't tell our muscles or train our muscles to sing louder. So we need to mentally get rid of that idea and take that tension out of our voice completely. Make sure that we're not straining here. Projection happens in the diaphragm. It happens in our breathing. For us, I would like to say that it happens below the diaphragm. You're breathing deep into your low stomach, and we talked about that in depth in our last video, so I will link that in the description box down below if you are interested in breathing techniques. One exercise that I have that is fantastic for one, learning how to breathe in the right place, and two, also powering through into that projection, that healthy projection mindset, is to sing laying down on the ground. And this is one of my favorites for a lot of reasons. One, it gets rid of that whole idea of reverse breathing, where when we breathe in, our stomachs go in. In reality, it should be completely opposite of that. When we breathe in, our stomach should go out. And when we breathe out, our stomach should return back in, so that we have something to push against. We have that contraction of the core to be able to power that breath up and outward. So for this exercise, you are going to lay flat on the ground and you're going to sing a single sustained pitch, going through all of our dynamics from soft to loud, all the way back down to soft again. So this will teach you how to really manage that breath correctly so that you are not running out of breath too fast. It's going to strengthen those muscles in the core. And it's also going to teach us how to project using the strength of our core and take all the tension out of here. So maybe do that 3 or 4 times in a row, then stand up and do that 3 or 4 times, trying to really engage the low core, making sure that you're breathing from the right place. Then there's another exercise that comes from the old choir days. This is a competition, a friendly competition that we used to have, where all of us would stand up, we would take a deep breath in, and then we would try to hiss out the air as long as possible until we completely ran out of breath and there was only one person left standing. So you can do this in front of your mirror, making sure if you want to put one hand on your stomach and one hand on your chest, take a breath in, make sure that only your stomach is moving, nothing in your chest or shoulders is moving, and then hiss out the air very gently and slowly, so to conserve that air. This is a good breath management technique. So forever and ever and ever, as long as you possibly can. Time yourself. See if you can't increase the time a little bit more each time that you practice this exercise. Those are 2 of my absolute favorites. They're really great at strengthening the core. Again, a lot of these techniques are incredible to practice, but until you practice them over and over and over again, it's just like any other muscle. Some of it requires patience and growth and strengthening of those muscles in order to see a dramatic difference. So the more you practice, the more your projection will automatically increase, and your breath management as well. These are just kind of the icing on the cake exercises that you can do. So I hope you found some of these things helpful today. If you did, leave a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts and any other topics you want to see covered in this new series. I will see you again very shortly in another video. Have a great week.